I always love it. I always love it when faith, culture, and religion clash.
Mm-hmm. In Buganda, we have names like Ndawula, Ndawula. Those are names of spirits of sudden disease and death.
Yeah. Ndawula is a god or a spirit. Although the African may give a name Ndawula based on a relative, some may not understand that the original meaning of the name Ndawula has to do with being a servant of a god called who? Ndawula. Whether you like it
or not,
when you are called Sali, you have a headquarter where? Bunjako. A lot of the people know that their name has to do with a god, but they think that those things are passive, that they are no longer working. I want to tell them that they are wrong. Now, in the journey of the African, in becoming a Christian, starting off to say I believe in Jesus is just the beginning.
Hey guys, welcome to On The Board Podcast. My name is Francis, your host, and thanks guys for keeping alive with our channel and our podcast. Now, today's episode is a very important episode, especially when it comes to societal moral fabric, one, and also when it comes to the cultural perspective of it when it comes to naming. For the longest time, names have existed in the African culture, even outside the African culture, that have been named, given to children. But oftentimes, you realize that a child acts a certain way and you do not know why. Which poses a question, does a name matter when it's being given to a child? And do we even look at the implications of giving that name when we give it to a child? That's where the center of this conversation is going to be today. To take you back a little bit, earlier this week, a very reputable religious leader in this country came out and mentioned a particular name and said that people that are given that name often die at a younger age. It started a lot of controversy on social media, including that of the person or the interview that I'm having today, because he had a lot to share. And that's why I decided that instead of us having this back and forth on the internet, why not have a person that is an opinion leader, a person that has something fundamental to say about the subject, to speak about this. So, ladies and gentlemen, with me, I'm honored to be in the presence of Pastor Martin Ssempa. It's the second time he's gracing this stage, and I can't wait to unveil him to you because I'm excited. This is going to be an interesting episode. Pastor Ssempa, welcome.
Thank you, Francis. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's been a long time coming.
Well, since last time you went to school in China.
Yes.
And so it's like every time after you interview, you go to China, then you come back.
It's always a blessing to have these conversations.
Yeah, but yeah. I've enjoyed watching your podcast grow.
Yes, thank you, Pastor.
I've enjoyed watching, you really are committed to what you are doing. And while many people called me today over this week to do a podcast with me, I did not want to spend so much of my time with them. But I sense that you really care what you do. You really give time into your production. So I was happy to sit down with you and talk about the subject that I think that I studied. It's the place of culture, the place of the family, the place. It's been a week,
Yeah, it's been a week of a lot
of back and forth. It's a bit of a culture study. The Tamale Mirundi.
Yes.
The son who was, fighting with his family.
Yes.
And you'd wanted me to talk about that.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about it. I don't know. Would you?
I think it's all in context, Yes. there is that issue. Then there is the pastor.
There's the pastor issue.
Pastor, my good friend, Pastor Grace Lubega.
Yes. Of Phaneroo.
Who, and I have to say, I think the sermon was called The Power of a Good Name.
That was the name of the sermon, yes.
Yeah, the name of the sermon was The Power of a Good Name. And I think it was all about the impact if you have a good name vis-a-vis a bad name.
Yes.
And he brought out the quotation, which I think you alluded to.
Yes.
And he was saying that if you're named after Ndawula, that as a result of being called the name Ndawula, he says that based on his understanding and knowledge, many of the people named after that name, they die suddenly.
Yes.
They don't live a long life. Is that it?
Yes, that's what he said.
In Buganda, we have names like Ndawula, Ndawula. Those are names of spirits of sudden disease and death. That's what it means. Sudden disease and death. People with those names, they fall sick for 2, 3, 4 days and they die. That's why there are very few of them with such names that live long. It's hard to find a 90-year-old Ndawula. Not impossible, but very hard. And all of them die sudden deaths. Sudden. Because every time they say Ndawula, something wakes up and says, I have a responsibility. Is he not rightly named?
So there was a lot of people who are, quite upset.
By including myself. Actually, for me, I was not upset, but I was just worried for people called Ndawula. Yes, because Pastor, I believe, in my opinion, that as if you're someone that is someone that holds a position of power, and opinion, so to speak, I think the way you fashion your message, should be very considerate, and you have to have in mind the impact of whatever you're going to say, because I believe now, while he could have come from a very interesting, a good point of view, trying to inform. What happens to a person called Ndawula right now? How do you reverse that? What's their mental state right now? And that's why I'm here, Pastor, to just to understand from your perspective, how important was that message and how bad was it?
I think that we have a law called the Access to Information Act.
Yes.
Where everybody is entitled to
their opinion,
but information, factual information of what is going on.
Yes.
And it is up to you to decide what to do with that information. So in this particular incident that came up, there's a lot of information concerning names, the etymology of names, that is the roots of those names, the significance of those names,
yes,
the consequences
of those names.
Now, the information that Pastor Lubega shared is based on research. And I think when people do not know what's behind the names,
they get annoyed. Yes.
And so, being a scholar, I've spent, I think for me, since 2015.
Yes.
16, that's about what? Almost 9 years.
9 years, yes.
I spent quite a bit of time researching that subject.
Of names?
Names.
Wow.
In my Buganda matrix. And what I discovered in my research is absolutely life-changing. It's the kind of information that you have to make a choice. So I have, as a scholar, as a teacher, it is my duty to give you factual information.
Definitely.
Now, when someone says, I am called Ndawula, you have to know who is Ndawula.
Do research about the name.
Exactly.
Okay.
Where does Ndawula come from? What are the consequences of being named Ndawula? Now, amongst the books that I do have that guide me on that subject, there are 2 books. One is a book by Sir Apollo Kagwa. I happen to have a copy of it. It's over here. It's called Empisa Zabaganda.
Empisa Zabaganda. This book was written in about 1903, the first edition. I don't know if I have a picture of Sir Apollo Kagwa. I might have it in here. Not in here. I think I have it in another of the books here. But the fact that Sir Apollo Kagwa, I have the English version also of the same book. This is called The Customs and of the Buganda by Sir Apollo Kagwa. The English version is not as... I didn't like it as much as the Luganda. As deep? But they're extremely deep. The second book that I would refer, I have a few others here, but the second book, I don't have it printed out, I have it on my laptop, is The Culture and the Peoples of Buganda by John Roscoe. John Roscoe was a Cambridge-trained anthropologist who came to Uganda at the turn of the century, that is from 1800s to 1900. And he was a missionary and also an anthropologist as well. And he did a tremendous job. Now, one of the things that when he was here, he saw that Uganda was changing. And he challenged Sir Apollo Kagwa. He says, Buganda is changing, but we don't have a single document to show what was Buganda like. Where is the book, like the journey?
Yeah, the journey.
Where's the journey?
And we know it's changing, but what is it like?
The documentation.
So he wrote, both of them wrote a book each. And this book was after extensive research, about 10 years. Before John Roscoe wrote his book, it took about 10 years. They gathered all the clan leaders, all the leaders of the shrines, all the wise men from across Buganda. And at that time, it had become fashionable to be a Christian. Because with the change of the kingdom from Mutesa to Mwanga to Rashid, then from Rashid to Chiwewa, then back to Mwanga. And there was a year, I think 1889, Buganda had 3 kings. It's called the Year of the 3 Kings. It's an interesting year, very, very turbulent.
Yes.
Rashid wanted to take us to the Islam. He aligned with when Mwanga was chased off, the Muslims put on Rashid. No, it was Kalema first and then Rashid. Kalema didn't want to be circumcised. They took him up, then they put Rashid. Because they told him, there was this battle. By the way, this whole thing is quite interesting. Because Mwanga, fought with the Christians, killed them in the Uganda matters. 1880s, isn't 18? I don't know. Gosh.
Wow.
They come in 1876. I think 1890 something. I'm sorry, I don't have the number now, but they came 1876. It's close to that time that I'm talking about. Mwanga fought the Christians with the help of the Muslims.
Oh, okay.
But then then Mwanga turned against the Muslims. Then the Muslim says, no, we have to get rid of you. Then they put another king, Kalema. Kalema was after Mwanga, and then they told him you have to get circumcised. And now, the blood of the king is not supposed to be shed according to the Baganda culture. The Baganda have a saying that omusai gwa kabaka, you know, the blood of the king, extremely important. You can't. Yes, but now for the Muslims, you have to what? Circumcise to become a true what? A true king. There was, I always love it. I always love it when faith, culture, and religion clash. Mm-hmm. It's an area of my greatest interest, especially in Buganda. And it's produced some of the most interesting scenes or sites in our country. But anyway, I will come back to that, especially when the queen, the mother of Chwa's wife, Chwa's wife, she decided to remarry. And they told her, no, the wife of the king does not get what?
Remarried.
And she decided to forcefully get married. She got pregnant.
By another man.
But Chikozi.
So Chigozi siwakati. Chigozi has come a long way.
And it was a crisis in the state of Buganda. Crisis. In fact, the assassination of Nsibirwa, the prime minister, the former prime minister, part of it was giving land for Makerere University, but the other part was supporting the king mother, or who was the widow of the king, of the dead king Chwa, to remarry. And the Baganda got so annoyed. You can't.
So that was part of the reason why.
Yeah, he was, but Nsibirwa supported her because he was a Christian.
Oh, yes.
Now, coming back again to these two books, John Roscoe tells Sir Apollo Kagwa, we must have a document of Buganda. They gathered all the wise historical leaders and they produced this book,
Mpisa za
Buganda. And it has everything to do with everything from religion. It has to do with how a child becomes a king, the games, the work, the fishing, making boats, swearing oaths. I mean, it's an how to make saucepans, blacksmithing, marriage. It has everything, including religion. And it's in Luganda. Very, very good. And then sometime later, May Mendelbaum, no, it was Ernest Kalibala who translated it into English.
Yes.
This book, and then the one by John Roscoe, Mpisa za Buganda, are so fundamental in understanding who the Baganda is and the names. So now when you say the names, okay, it's you got to know what is the name. So when you listen to, what do I use? English, Luganda.
You English should be
okay. So now in the chapter,
whatever works.
In the chapter called Empisa z'Abalubale n'Abalaguzi, the traditions of the gods and the men of the gods, you get to read the teachings about the gods of Buganda. Empisa z'Abalubale n'Abalaguzi, Walumbe Entanda, Lubale Wanga. These are the names of the different gods. Yaberanga Buvu Esese, his headquarters in Buvu Sese. Lubale Musisi, ye mwana wa Bukuko wokusatu, yaberanga Bigwe Bufuma Busujju. Lubale Wamala, yali omwana wa Musisi, he was the child of Musisi, yaberanga musaza lye Singo. Lubale Wannema, yali mwana wa Muse, child of Musisi owokubiri, yaberanga Bukasa Esese, his altar is in Sese. Lubale Serwanga Mukasa, yaberanga Bubembe Esese. Then you have Lubale Chibuka. Okay, Chibuka,
katonda w'enkuba
kibuuka yalina omwana wa wannema owokubiri. Then when you move forward, Lubaale Mirimu, Lubaale Kawumpuli, Lubaale Muwanga. Now Ndawula is on number 16, right after Namalere, Kiwanuka, Nalwoga, Nagadya. So Lubaale, let me just tell Lubaale Nagadya. Oyabeeranga Lubaale mukazi ng'abeera ku kyalo Nkumba ebulama mu ssaza e Busiro. Now, you know where Nkumba University is? This is where Nagadya's altars is.
Used to be, okay.
In fact, when I met Mama Fina, she told me that she's the principal spirit of the spirit called Nagadya. Then I told her, Mama Fina, I know where your headquarters is. She said, where? I said, it is in Nkumba. She said, how do you know? She said, I'm a researcher. Now, this is the chief witch in Uganda. But she didn't have the book, so she wanted to get my books. I did give them to her because of my research. Now, when the pastor spoke recently, he talked about Lubaale Ndawula Kawali. Now, Lubaale Ndawula, the Bwino is yabeeranga ku lusozi emubende ebuweekuula. Now, Ndawula, it means his altar, he dwells on the hill in Mubende. In Buweekula, next to Dungu. There's even Lubaale Katonda. Now, when you hear that Ndawula is a name,
yes,
most people are given that name because it was given to them as a basis that your uncle was called who? Ndawula. Now, they don't go back to where the name Ndawula comes from.
Yeah.
Ndawula is a god or a spirit. And in the covenants of our pre-Christian religion, we had gods, just as Greeks. They have their gods, Poseidon, Zeus, the god of the sun. Just as the Egyptians, they have their gods, Ra, they have their gods of the dead, even the Baganda have their gods, the Babylonians have their gods, even for us, we also had the gods that we what? We worshipped. Yes, Indians have their gods, Baha'i and the others. So now, amongst our pre-Christian gods that we worship, they are well documented. One of them is called Ndawula. Now, when a person is given the name of a god, that name has to do with an existing. Usually the parents give the name because your uncle was called who?
Ndawula.
So now the memory, we want to perpetuate the memory of our uncles through the living. Now the African, according to John S. Mbiti, he's an anthropologist, helps us to understand the Africa exists in 3 dimensions. There is the ancestors, there's the living, and there's descendants. The ancestors, those are the ones who came before us.
Yes.
The living, those are us who are alive what?
Right now.
Today. The descendants are the children the living are going to what? To have.
To have, yes.
Now the ancestors have a future through the living giving birth to the descendants
who they are named after.
Exactly.
Okay.
So the African exists in the past, present, and the future. We live, but also God, by the way, in the Bible, which I have over here, God is also the God of those 3 dimensions. Whenever they say God is a God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, always in 3 dimensions. The ancestor is who?
Is
Abraham. The living is who? Isaac. The descendant is who?
Jacob.
Now, even the Bible talks, Matthew chapter 1, a whole line of genealogy. This one was this one, Omwana. You see the ancestry. So, although the African may give a name, Ndawula, based on a relative, some may not understand that the original meaning of the name Ndawula has to do with being a servant of a god called who? Ndawula. So when you are named Ndawula, it means you have been implanted with a covenant
to honor
the
God Ndawula.
Whether you like it
or not.
Now, you need to understand that the spirit world runs on authority. Just as the world runs on what? Authority. You buy a piece of land, you put it in your names, it is your what?
Piece of land.
Nobody can take it. If you try to sell it to me and I have an interest in your land, I can put a caveat.
So that you don't do anything
on that land.
Yes.
It is a caveat. I have an interest in that what?
Land.
But it has to have a basis. That the basis of that interest in that land is this. And then I ascribe it to the authority who is the land board.
Land board, yes.
Now, in the spirit also, if you are called Ndawula, you are by law a servant of who?
The God in Ndawula.
Ndawula. And your Ndawula has system administration passwords over you. Now the crisis comes when a person is called Ndawula, but is also a Christian called Matthew Ndawula.
So the clash of
now you are
entities.
having 2 SIM cards in one phone. Now many people don't understand this conflict of the journey of salvation of the African. We have not yet fully understood, and this journey is appreciated and rejected by some. This journey is at the heart of the conflict between why there is a difference between Namirembe Diocese and the All Saints Cathedral. This is the difference between some of the Balokoles in Church of Uganda and the Balokoles who are
church.
And the regular Church of Uganda people. At the heart of this, now you see, Namirembe is very traditional.
Yeah.
This is the seat of the king. There is a place where the Kabaka sits. So, in essence, it's very much a stronghold for the Buganda Kingdom and Buganda Church. Now, at some point, there was a willingness to transform. For example, when Kabaka Chwa got married, his wife, now amongst the Baganda, traditionally a man has 3 wives. The first wife was supposed to be Kadurubari. Just look it up on the wives of the Baganda. Just look it up. I want to get the other 2. Traditionally, there were always 3. The number 1 is called what? Kadurubari. I'm sorry to use that thing. Now, when Chwa was getting married to his wife, she was the wife of Chwa. Now, Chwa can be remembered because he was raised up by Sir Apollo Kagwa and the other regents. And really, Kagwa was a very strong Christian, as I saw. You see in his book. In his book, you can see he was very, very strong Christian, and he did a lot in strengthening the kingdom. Unfortunately, he's hated by some. Because you see, he wanted to make Buganda a Christian kingdom. But there are some who resisted him. And they even say he's not even a Muganda. There's so much bias. When I look at this recent book by Professor Samwiri Lugolobi, okay? This one right over here. Help me move this cup. When I look at Professor Samuel Luanga Lunyigo's book, he has so much bias against Sir Apollo Kagwa. Yeah, and he tries to make Mwanga look like a martyr, who is not. Mwanga was not a martyr. Mwanga was really a bad boy. But by the way, he ended up changing at some point, and he asked the Christians who he had killed, so please Munyambi, and that's a great story to tell. But there is revision, I was pointing at, that there is hatred of who?
Sir Apollo
Kagwa. There's a lot. Kagwa is an icon. Lubaale Naabagesera oyavunulanga ebya Lubaale Wamala, Lubaale Muwanga, Lunfuwa, Kisigula, Masonga, Semafumu, Mpamula. Now, I even came to that there was special hills 74. Era zino z'ensozi ezaabeeranga ez'ekitiibwa ennyo ezaayitibwanga eza Lubaale nga nazo abantu bazisamira. These are special hills
where people go to worship.
Would go. Bowa, Ssempa, Walusi, Kateera Nduulu, Kigozi, Busowa. Ezo zonna ziri Bulemeezi, those are in Bulemeezi. Era ze zaabeeranga ebiddukiro by'abantu mu Buganda. Kabaka bwe yabazindanga ng'okwo kwe baddukira. Buli yatuukanga okwo ng'awonye, kubanga tekwatuukanga mugabe wa kabaka newankubadde omuntu omulala yenna eyatambulanga mu ngeri y'okunyaga ebintu by'abalala. Bwe baamuliranga ekitiibwa kyabwe nga kimufa mangu ago. Now, what happened was among the hills, most of the hills were dedicated, by the way, in Buganda. Now, one of the hills was called Ssempa. Now, the principal spirit that dwelt on that hill in Bulemeezi, Ssempa, made a covenant that all the boys born around it were always called who?
Ssempa. So
you need to understand this. So when you mention the name Ssempa, you are talking about a boy or a descendant of another man who was in covenant with a spirit called what?
Ssempa.
Whose headquarters is where?
Bulemeezi.
Bulemeezi. Now, I see your cameraman is called Sally. Now, let me read up on Sally also.
Yes, let's get Sally.
Sally is on section number 70. Sally, eryo jjinja liri mu nnyanja Nalubaale kumpi n'ebunjako ku butaka bw'ab'enkima. Now, this is a rock in the lake Nalubaale oba Lake Victoria. It is near a place called Bunjako, okay? Near the headquarters of the people of the clan of the Manke. Nalyo lyasamirirwanga, and that rock, it's a very big rock in the water. It's a huge boulder. It was nalyo lyakola ki? It was worshipped as it was given deity. Era abaana abaazaalirwa eyo babatuuma erinnya eryo erya Sally. Now, every child that is born around there was given a name who?
Sally.
Sally. Now, when you are called Sally, you have a headquarter where? Bunjako. Now, I traveled to Bunjako. Is not far from my home. I live in Kasanje. Now, from Kasanje, the next town is Mabamba. Mabamba, you cross over to the island called Busi. Now, from Busi Island, you cross over 10 minutes to the island called Zinga. Zinga Namalere. Okay. Now, Zinga also has a lot of headquarters of spirits. But next to Zinga is that rock.
Sally.
Bunjako, Sally. So I have been there and I've looked at it, and I've been told that all the boys that are born around here, they are named after that rock. But it's not just the rock. There is the owner or a person who claims ownership of the what?
The rock.
Who is called who?
Sally.
Now, a lot of the people know that their name has to do with the God. But they think that those things are passive, that they are no longer working. I want to tell them that they are wrong. No, they are wrong. And I don't have to be an expert to tell you that you are not wrong. It is working. I remember sitting down and listening to Metro, this radio station owned by who is this friend of the former politician of the city of Kampala? Babu. Isn't
Francis
it?
Babu.
Hey, Babu. Isn't that Metro?
Yeah, I think that's Metro.
It's Metro. So there was days I would listen to it in the evening before UCC came in. There used to be a man that came on, I think he's one of the producers, Tuesday, Wednesday. And people would call him and they would tell him all their problems. But what was interesting to me was that you just needed to mention your name. And the man would tell you, would mention to you, oh, what is your name, Nagadia? Oh, what's your name, Ndawula? Oh, what's your name, Sally? Okay, what are your problems? Say, have you been to the altar? Wagenda ku kigwa n'owaayo bajjajja gasinaba kati gendayo. Olota ki? Ndoota nga ndi ku nnyanja, ndoota nga ngenda ku lwazi, ndoota kiki? You will see in your dreams symbols having to do with that particular spirits. Now, in the journey of the African, the what?
The African.
In becoming a Christian, starting off to say, I believe in Jesus is just the beginning. Saying that I'm being given a name is the beginning. But there are much transformation that needs to be made. Let me go back to where I started off, the difference in Namirembe and All Saints.